Howdy! Welcome to a special episode of That Munch Life. You've seen my deck breakdown videos. Well, if you're watching this, you've probably seen my deck breakdown videos. And if you're watching this, you've probably seen Tank and I play the CCG a couple of times. This is going to be a deck building video. I'm going to build a deck with the Orc Bard. I hope you can see that. I'll put them up closer. And I'm going to do this in real time. So I'm going to build a deck. I haven't chosen any cards yet for this deck. I'm building it from the ground up. This is a scratch build for a brand new deck. I have my Bard cards over here, I have my Gray cards over here, and I have the Bard and Gray of things that I have in top loaders, which would be V-Rare and above. So, like the Inn of Improbable Rooms, probably not going to go in this deck, but you know, I have them out just in case I want to start messing around. At some point we will find what I do. What I'm going to do is in real time explain how I'm building a deck, and then build it in front of you, and then hopefully the next episode I post after this one will be me playing this deck against either Tank or Corey, probably Tank. So I want you to be able to see where my mind goes, what my motivations are for what cards I put in, and maybe help you build a deck of your own at home, either with my ideas, with this deck. I will post the actual deck list in the description if you don't want to watch the whole thing, because it could be kind of a long one. In case you, so I'll post the deck list in the description, so if you want to just charge ahead and build your own based on my idea, go right ahead. I would take it as a compliment. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I do whenever I build a deck. I have, at last count, 11 decks built for the various heroes, including a gray deck with a generic hero. I believe there's currently a flamingo in there. I might replace it with an alpaca. All of the generic heroes have the same ability. It's just different art. It's just whatever you prefer. I'm hoping that the generic heroes in Core 2, which should be early next year, have a different ability, so that you can have your generic Wanderer heroes and be able to choose from a different ability of those heroes. That's just speculation, and they tell us that there's going to be new heroes in the next season, so I'm kind of excited to see that. So I'm going to go through what I normally do, because I have my Blarg, or my core Bard cards here, along with the Blarg Bard cards. Not very many. They're kind of underrepresented in Blarg. That's to be expected. Sometimes you're going to have more and less of a certain hero in an expansion. And then I have my Fashion Furious Bard cards, which is significantly more. I have a few of my Blarg Bard cards in my main Bard deck, which is the Blood, Sweat, and Tears deck, because I give whimsical names to all of my decks. And the Bard deck that I have has all of the damage effects. The final countdown, which makes it so that these are all that you stick to the other person's hero card. Final countdown, they take a damage whenever they draw a card. Tromboned, they take a damage whenever they zap their hero card. Squidzilla, which once the combat is over, if it survives, it gives bleeding. Combo Rat, which does the same thing, but it's smaller, so it costs less. You can get it out early in the game. And the Mischief Bleeded Out. Squidzilla and the Combo Rat are both monsters, and then Bleeded Out is a Mischief that gives them bleeding, but they can pay to get rid of that. So I only have one of those in that deck, because it's not as powerful as the other bleed effects. I also have Stuff Shaming. Is that up? No, that's a cleric card. Never mind. I don't have that in there. But Stuff Shaming is a bleed effect card you put on loot instead of on the hero. So that means the bodyguard does nothing. And so you would need to make Overlord for that from Fast and Furious. So I kind of have a brain for this, and I wanted to take you through my process to see how I make decks, how it might help, it might behoove you to build your own deck. It might answer some questions you have about deck building. I was under the tutelage of Corey for the bulk of the years that he was still is a Magic the Gathering addict, and so he has a very deck buildy brain. And so I got some pointers from him when this first came out, because even though I did play Magic back in the day, my last deck was Portal, just to give you a gauge of how far into the past that was. And then I bought a box of Urza's Destiny, and that was pretty much it. I was done. The reason I like the Munchkin CCG so much is because it's funny. It's whimsical, it has fun abilities, Magic, in my experience, is very serious, very dour. The only whimsy that you get is from Goblin decks, and those are kind of few and far between, and as I hear, not terribly competitive. Don't at me in the comments if you're a Goblin deck player. I played a red deck. Better red than dead. So, without further ado, I'm going to start by putting out some of these cards. I find the cards that I want, and then cut from there. It's like building a sports team. You have tryouts, you go, you know, this, and this, and this, I like this, and this, and this. You start to find the theme of the deck, and then you start making cuts to the team. And go, well, you just didn't quite make the cut. And because you have to get down to a 40-card deck, no more, no less. And it must contain, it contains a combination of monsters, loot, mischiefs, allies, and locations. In any combination you choose. If you wanted to, you could make one that was all monsters. I don't think you would last very long with all monsters. Might be a experimental deck to try in the future, but you can make one with all mischiefs, no monsters at all, and see if you can mischief the other person into death. You can make one with all locations, which I'm trying to do. There aren't enough locations yet to do an all location deck, but my cleric deck, if you've seen the last most previous episode, I played with my Where the Hell Are We deck, which has 19 different locations as of this taping, and I kind of want to put in more. But it's a cleric deck, basically in name only, because I have the some cleric cards like House Hunting, which lets you go get a location. It has a couple of heal effects, the healing salvos, the bootleg booties, stuff like that lets me heal. And it has Holy Ghosts that have draw effects when it regenerates. So I only have 3.5 monsters in that deck. And so it's pretty much a cleric deck because it's 51% cleric. So I have most of the locations in there, but the Inn of Improbable Rooms lets you have as many locations in play as you want. And so the deck is kind of built around that card because that is currently my favorite card. I love it to death. Good job, Steve Jackson Games. So we go through the deck and we find like allies that we want, that we find locations that we want, stuff like that. So backup dancers, I like those. It's a 1 gold ally, zap target hired monster, gains 2 power for this fight, then squish this. So it's kind of a glass cannon. You can't use it as a meat shield later on if you use it that way, but it's good to have for that clutch at the end when you want to just add damage to a monster and in the game. You know, you take out a big monster. My Plutonium Dragon, which normally has 8, and then I have 2 backup dancers, which give it 4 more. So that's 12 before Captain Warrior takes out his 8-level Hydrax and whacks your ass. So a backup dancers might be good. Again, any of these cards might be taken out later on. But let's see. The impetus for this was I found the Roar card and I want them in my deck, which is draw 1 card, Encore. Encore is an ability specific to the Bard, if I remember correctly, but it's instead of discarding this mischief when you use it, you stash it face down and then you get it back your next turn. So you can use it on your next turn as well. So draw a card, pay 2, draw a card, pay 2, draw a card. And the Bard Zap ability gives you the chance to take it back to your hand once, because you zap your hero and you can take a card that you're putting face down in your stash into your hand instead, which is really great for some monsters if they run away from something that you really hope that they wouldn't, and you take it back to your hand and just put it out again. So they have to decide if they want to limp away from that. Mosh Pit, not really feeling that one. The Blue Suede Shoes, which is a loot trinket to flip your runaway marker. Son of a bitch. Yeah, I'm going to try 2 of those because, like I said before, Fashion Furious introduces a fun new power called Bravado, in which you flip your runaway marker to activate the Bravado ability, which means you don't get to run away later on in the turn, or activate another Bravado ability. But the Blue Suede Shoes here, zap pay 1, flip your runaway marker. So you can actually get multiple Bravados. And that might be one of the themes of this deck. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put, you can have up to 3 copies of any card in your deck. So I'm going to start out with 3 Blue Suede Shoes. Ooh. I'm going to go with a bunch of fun small loot in here. Another 1-star loot, the Whammy Bar, which is a rare, by the way. The Blue Suede Shoes is uncommon, but I do have 5 of them. If you see something in my deck, it means that I already have one in my collection binder, and these are the ones that I have for play. Now, the Whammy Bar is used when you squish a hired monster. Zap, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, stash 1, and discard the other. Which means if you're squishing a hired monster doing this, then it's not your turn at the time. So you're going to get those back in half a turn. So the Whammy Bar is fun. Chopsticks, which is basically the discount cudgel of this deck. It's a 0-star 1/1 weapon, and when you commit it to a fight and the monster is hired, roll the die. On a 1 to 3, squish this. On a 4 to 6, you get to keep it. Not too zippity-doo-dah on chopsticks. Now I want another weapon. Again, it's 0 stars, so it might be good to have out. Let's put one in the running. There you go. And for my layout here, I put it into categories. I have my mischiefs over here. I have my loot separated into weapons and non-weapons. I have my monsters And then I have locations and allies. They have to share a little side over here, because you're not going to have as many allies and locations as you do, say, monsters and mischiefs in a regular deck. Again, all of this is subject to change because stuff goes weird. If the theme of your deck becomes whatever, like I'm going to have 30 allies in my deck and a bunch of stuff to resurrect allies and beef up allies, that might be a fun deck too. You know, every theme can be done. Whatever you want, and I'm sure that you can make a competitive deck with whatever wacky idea that you can come up with. Please come up with wacky ideas. Tell me in the comments. I love making decks out of weird ideas. And if you get a deck list, put it in the comments, or email it to me, topcitygamers@gmail. Put it on the Zapped and Squished Facebook group. I'm on there. Put it on the Steve Jackson forums for the CCG. I'm on there. Just show me your deck lists, and you know, I might play them. And if I do, if you post it in the comments that you put it somewhere or everywhere, and I actually make it, the first few, I mean, we don't get a lot of comments on these. I don't have any delusions that I'm a huge YouTube star or anything. But if you post it, we might make an episode with me playing your deck. I'll play against Tank's Ranger deck, or if you post a Ranger list, we might play against his Thief deck. Whatever it is. But I'm kind of excited to be able to do something like that. I like audience participation. Tell me your deck lists. Let's see. The Vuvuzela is an expensive loot. It's 3 stars. Every time you play a Mischief, collect 1. And then zap move 2 tokens from this card to the stockpile. Deal 1 damage to any target. It's fairly powerful. It's a little hard to build up what you need on there to be able to do any serious damage. And you have to zap it to use that ability. So if you have a Mischief heavy deck, yes, you might collect a lot on there, but you might not have enough turns to use it every turn. So unless you have something that specifically unzaps target loot, like the Irresistible Disco, then you're kind of SOL. And if you're relying on the Irresistible Disco, then you might not draw one. So that ability might not come to fruition. Again, that's a caveat with any deck. Whatever you have idea-wise, you might not draw it. That's a serious detriment with wizard decks sometimes, because wizard decks are, in my experience, all of this is your mileage may vary. In my experience, wizard decks are very combo based. If you watch the episode with my wizard versus Tank's Thief, I have a wicked combo in there with the Hot Potato and the Curse of Quack. It's a phenomenal thing. I call that deck the Do You Want Fries with this deck, because it has 3 Hot Potatoes, 3 Curse of Quack, some magic missiles, but that's not for the name, and some Hold That Pose, also not pertinent to the title. And so my idea is to just keep stuff in front of him. Like, just pile you with stuff, keep your monsters perma-stashed. You get those big monsters out, I block the damage from it once, and it goes into your stash. You're like, oh, I'll get that back next turn. But no, I perma-stash it for you, and it stays there forever. The Brass Kicker. When this damages a monster in a fight, the attacker must spill 2. Wow, that's actually really good. I might go with the Brass Kicker. The Elvish Impersonator. This is one of my personal favorite mischiefs because it's so versatile. It is Mischief Treachery, pretty straightforward, 3 gold, deal 3 damage to target monster. However, it also has the monstrous ability, Monstrous 3. So when you commit it to a fight, usually if you commit a mischief to a fight and you flip it over, you're cheating and you take damage. But with this one, if you pay the requisite gold, it's a 3/3 monster, and when it's committed to a fight, so it becomes a 3/3 monster. Then on your next turn you get it back, he knows you have it as a monster now, he's probably going to run away from it. And when he does, you zap your hero card, get it back, and because you got your gold back, just play it as damage. When he brings out a monster next time. It's a very versatile card. I love it. I'm going to put out 3 of them. Might not keep all 3, but it's a fun mischief to have. And the monstrous ability means that it can take up a monster slot that I might otherwise need for something else later on, in case I want Blarg. I love Blarg. Starstruck. I do like the ability on Starstruck. It is a 1 gold mischief. Stick to target ally, ignore that ally's ability. I keep one of those in my other Bard deck because there's so many bleed effects that it's kind of a house of cards. They put out Bodyguard, and it's a ticking time bomb to your entire strategy falling. So you put that on there, you go, oh, Starstruck! Now the Bodyguard doesn't mean shit. So I threw a Starstruck down there. Again, might not keep it, but it's a good idea. Jam Session. Oh, these are fun. Stick to target weapon in your opponent's horde, and when that weapon is zapped, target opponent must draw 1 card. So you start drawing cards. So unless he's also playing a Bard and he puts a bunch of Final Countdown on you, then Jam Session is totally worth it. It does not have Encore, by the way, so I'm going to start with 3 of those in here. Probably parse that down to 2. Trombone. I'm kind of staying away from the stuck hero effects in this particular deck, just because that's the theme of my other Bard deck. So Trombone is stick to target hero card. That hero takes 1 damage when his hero card is zapped. So it's kind of a hero lockdown ability. If the warrior wants to do a damage to you, then you're going to do a damage right back to him. And you put 2 trombones on there, then he's doing 2 for 1, and that's not really useful. Trollol. If you have a Bard deck without 3 Trollolols in it, you're doing it wrong, because it cancels target mischief. That is the most worthwhile card you can have in a Bard deck. That is not in dispute to have 3 of those in this deck. No question. 99 Bottles is a draw discard. It's basically the thief ability in a card. No, it's not. Pardon. The thief ability is draw bottom deck a card. This is draw discard. So I'm going to start with 2 of those. Might not keep them because the Velocipede from Fashion Furious has basically the thief ability. Draw 1, bottom deck 1. The Irresistible Disco, which goes along with the Blue Suede Shoes effect here. Again, I'm really finding the theme here pretty early on, so you're lucky. Sometimes I don't find it till I get into the grays. I have 2 Irresistible Discos left that aren't committed to a deck right now. And it is zap or unzap, target, loot, or ally, with Encore. So it is a very powerful card. 2 gold for this mischief, and it becomes a good staple card to have around when you're trying to get stuff done. So when I get the card that I want out of Fashion Furious Bard cards, the Hairspray, just to spoil it for you, it has a bravado power. So if I put a couple of Hairsprays in there, get them out, and I believe, without looking, it adds 3 damage to target hired monster, which is phenomenal. So you do that, you flip your runaway, and he thinks, oh, it has 3 more. Then you zap your Blue Suede Shoes, you reflip your runaway marker, and then Irresistible Disco, get your Hairspray back unzapped, and then do it again. It now has 6. If you do it right and get the right draw, that could be a very powerful endgame gambit. Beware the Amscray, beware the Doge, beware the other cards that completely mitigate damage from a combat, whatever mancy, stuff like that, that can take away all of the damage from target hired monster or combat, whatever, because that can thwart your plans very fast. YOLO is a good utility card to have, because it's 1 gold, roll the die, take that much damage but squish target monster. So I have 1 spare of those. Danger Zone is kind of a no-brainer location if you're going Mischief heavy, which it looks like we're going to, because when any hero plays a Mischief card with a gold cost of 2 or more, that hero takes a gold. So it basically makes Mischiefs cost 1 less, but you have to pay up front for it. If it costs 5, you still have to have 5 to put out, but you get 1 back. That's a double-edged sword, however, because locations affect both players. Which, if you're playing against a Bard, and they put out a Danger Zone, that means every time you play a 2 gold Mischief, you get both of those back. Can't touch this. Move a damage from your hero to target stashed monster. It also has Encore. That's a fun little gotcha for 1 damage or 1 life monsters that end up in front of you. You go, oh, okay, I'll take that damage, but then you can't touch this, and I move that damage to him and it kills him. And the rest of my core. The Yelling Goat. Okay, we're into monsters now. We've gotten past the Mischiefs and the locations and loot. We're into the monsters. The Yelling Goat, Monster Beastie, Survivor, zap target loot controlled by the defender. Can be kind of cool. It's a little expensive, 3 gold for a 1 damage, 3 life monster. Fun, but I don't think I need it. The one-hit wonder is great. He's 3 for 5 damage, but the Survivor is squish this, because one-hit wonder. If I keep some of the Elvises, I might have a one-hit wonder in there. He's like a huge goblin kaboomer, is what it is. Groupies. Groupies aren't as good if you don't have the final countdown out. It's a monster, 1 gold for 2 damage, but when something like that happens, that means something good is happening to the other guy. Defender draws 1 card. So that is a really great turnaround in a deck with the final countdown in it, or if you can get 3 of them out. The final countdown is a V-Rare card, so it's hard to get 3 of them. I was lucky enough to acquire 3 of them, and so they're in my stuck card, my damage deck, other Bard deck. So much fun to be able to get all 3 of those out and then throw out the groupies. I did that to tank once, and I put out the groupies on the very last turn, which do 2 damage, and he had 3 final countdowns on him. He drew 3 cards. They didn't mitigate any of the damage. It would have been devastating for me on the next turn if he had gotten one, but it did those 3 damage, and then the 2 damage from the groupies finished him off. 5 damage all at once from a perceived 1 gold monster is phenomenal, especially if you combine it with, say, the School of Badassery, which is a W rare, but I have one here. School of Badassery, which makes monsters cost more, but it also gives them 2 extra damage, which means if you're making what I want to call a super cheap deck, you put the School of Badassery in there, and then all of the Blandy McBlandersons you want, all of the Freebirds you want. Freebird, by the way, would be devastating in a deck like that, because when you hire Freebird, you get all of your gold back that you committed to the fight, because he's free. Freebird. He's a monster. He's 0/0. But if you have the School of Badassery out, he's now 0. He's now 0 gold for 2 damage, 1 life, but you get all your gold back. So you put 3 free birds in there, boom, boom, boom. That's 6 damage per turn, and probably 4 in a runaway. And you still have all your gold after 3 of them. Then you put your blandies out, 0, 0, 1 monster, and boom, boom, boom. That's 6 more, and and you still have all your gold, so you can play your mischiefs and do like, oh, you wanted to kill some of them, no, and so that's an idea as well. 1 free bird is not outside the realm of possibility to stay in this deck. The Grody Roadies, zap target unzapped loot you control, but it's 2 for 3. Haven't really found a theme to put that with yet. The Earworm, which is fun. Again, it's one of those whimsical cards. It's the Earworm, because if you sing it, sing the name of this card aloud. If your opponent sings the name of this card back to you, you each draw 1 card. If he does not, you both spill 1 card. I like the Earworm. I think it's fun. I don't think it fits with this deck though. Shrieking Fans. For this fight, this gains 1 damage for each face down card in your stash. Actually, that might be helpful with all of the Encore abilities that I have in here. So let's start with 2. And that's all for the core, Season 1 core Bard cards that I have. The limited amount of Blarg cards that I have, Chopin, like Chopin. When this is damaged by a monster in a fight, this deals 1 damage to that monster. Which is good for precisely 3 damage worth of monster. Unless you have something that either puts him back in your hand or heals him. Haven't really found a good theme for him yet. Sonic Shield. Oh yeah, I need one of those. That is a loot armor. Zap discard 1 mischief. Prevent up to 3 damage to your hero. So that's a nice damage reduction card, and it can help if they don't have any allies out and you want to get some use out of that Starstruck. Air Guitar, which is a V-Rare and should be in a top loader. I don't know why it's in here, because I have some other Air Guitars. They're over here. When this damages a monster in a fight, draw 1 card, then move 1 card from your hand to the top of your deck face down. The top of your deck. So that'd be hilarious if you have 3 Air Guitars out, you commit them all to a fight, it damages a monster, you get to draw, and then put 1 from your hand on the top of your deck, and then do it again, and then do it again. So theoretically you just put the same card back 3 times, or you can cycle a bunch of shit out of your hand that you don't really need right now for stuff that you might need. But I don't see any reason to have more than 1 of these in the average deck. It would be fun to have, because it's only 2-star. I'm not against having something in there just for whimsy. The Wackety Sacks, which I don't get, it's like the Surreptitious Scythe in the Thief deck, or Thief cards. It's a 0-star weapon with a flaunt ability. Move this card from your hand to your horde face up and unzapped. During your reckoning, if this has no tokens on it, collect 1. This gains 1 star for each token on it. So it's 0-star until your turn comes around. Then you put a token on it, and then it's a 1-star. That's pretty much all it is. So it has the ability to be put out immediately. It does no damage, but it can suck up 1. Which is interesting, because then you can put it out and immediately commit it to a fight when they go, oh, I've got a used card dealer, or, nah, he doesn't do any damage. So he puts out a 1/1 Walking Dreads. So you put that out, and it sucks up the damage from it. Bleed It Out, we were discussing that. I'll be back. Use when a treachery card is moved to your discard pile, stash that card. Ooh, I like that. Because Irresistible Disco, well, already has Encore. Jam Session is a curse. Already has Encore. Ah, YOLO is a treachery. So this basically can give Encore to something. It does not, in and of itself, have Encore. Wow. Yeah, I think we need to. I have 2 of those to spare. Put a 3rd roar in the running. Fire. Squish all monsters with 2 damage or 2 power or less. Concert Security. Remove target committed ally from the fight and move it to its owner's horde, keeping it zapped. It's like, nope. The Man-Eater. Zap the Defender's Hero card. Actually, I need to put this in my other Bard deck, so I'm not going to put the 1 spare that I have in this deck. It's going to be, I need to figure out where to put that. Zap the Defender's Hero card. If the Defender's Hero card is already zapped, the Defender instead spills 1. But the thing is, if you have a Trombone or 2 already on there, then that will deal damage to him. And it's a monster, so it's going to deal more damage. Plus, his hero card is zapped, so if it's a warrior, he can't ding you at the end of the round. If it's a wizard, he can't use his ability to put out a cheap mischief. And if it's a ranger, well, no, he'll unzap it at the beginning of his turn, so that doesn't really do anything. But if he's a thief, he won't be able to bottom deck anything until his own turn. And wizard, cleric won't be able to avoid a damage. Yeah, that's a lot of good stuff there. So I'm going to set that over here on top of my other Bard deck, which is just off screen over here. And the last monster in the blog that I have is Lucy in the Sky. Roll the die. On a 1 to 3, remove all committed weapons from the fight and move them to their owner's horde, keeping them zapped. And on a 4 to 6, nothing happens. That's fun. That's fun. I like that. Put that there. And now the Fashion Furious Bard cards. The Choreographer is an ally. This heals 1 each time you play a mischief. That seems a bit like overkill in a Bard deck, in a mischief-heavy Bard deck. He will never not have all of his life on him. The Hairspray, we've already discussed. That's going in, obviously, immediately. The Tip Jar, which Corey was using on me just a couple of hours ago. Each time you play a mischief, collect 1. Zap move all tokens from this card to any number of target stashed monsters distributed as you choose. That would be fun to put in here, except it's 3 stars, and I don't believe I have the star room for it. Remember, you can only have as many stars worth of loot out as your current level. So you can never have more than 10 stars worth out at a time. There are exceptions to that because some things... Oh, what is it? I think there's either a thief or a wizard card that lowers the star cost of a card by 1, which is pretty awesome. And if you have 3 of those in a deck, you now have the ability to have 13 stars worth of loot out. And that's phenomenally powerful. I love that a lot. the glass gong. Actually, I might put one of those in, because it's a 2-1 weapon. However, it has a Zap Squish ability, which, if you've seen my gray deck breakdown, you know that I'm fond of those. Zap Squish target loot, then squish this. Bye bye Hydrax. I glass gonged it. But it comes into play zapped, so they get to sit there and wait for the anticipation, and that can be palpable. You might hear cats in the background. Autographed, stick this to target loot. When that loot zaps, its controller spills too, which can be interesting in a spill deck. It would kind of be interesting to have a Bard spill deck, because when you think spill, you think thief deck. This is Kit Kat. He's an asshole sometimes, but he's sweet. Shrug. Shrug is kind of like Trollolo Light, but it has Encore. So those are definitely going into this deck. It is ignore target mischief as it is being played. That card is stashed and its owner returns the gold paid for it to their purse, and it has Encore. So you get it back, then I get it back. Wardrobe change. Use when you limp away, draw 1 card with Encore. That is a 0 gold mischief, which is kind of interesting, but if this deck is played correctly, I don't think you'll ever have to limp away. So that's not worth having in this deck. One More Time, which is a great card. 1 gold to go back into your discard pile and retrieve a mischief. Look through your discard pile, choose a mischief card, reveal it, and move it to your hand. So if somebody makes you spill some of your Encore cards, you can go back and get them. The Safety Dance, unzap target ally. I kind of had an idea, I go to an idea for something like that with the ally that does damage to like all allies or all stash monsters, stuff like that, so that you can unzap them, do it again, unzap them, do it again. If you have enough gold at the end of the game, you have 3 DJ Tims out, you Safety Dance them a bunch of times, and Irresistible Disco works on allies as well, so you just Tim, 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 unzap, 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 Tim, Tim, Tim. And that could do a lot of damage. So that's fun. I like that. Doesn't work with the theme of this deck, and as you can see, I'm quickly running out of room in the deck. I'm gonna have to start making deep cuts here before I even get to the grays. Squish target stash monster with a gold cost of 2 or less. If looks could kill. That's gold cost, not health or whatever. Shakedown, reduce target hired monster's power by 2 for this fight unless its controller gives you a gold. Also fun. Don't think I have the room for it. Fashion Victim, if the defender controls any armor, reduce the life of this by 2. It is a 4 gold 6 power monster. That's interesting. The Pumpkin Python. When this is squished in a fight, the defender may move 1 card from their discard pile to their stash face down. So that has a power that goes off if it gets squished. If it doesn't, it's 2 for 3 for nothing. So I mean, that's not bad. And my favorite titled card of Fashion Furious, the Sharp Dressed Man. You can go look for any of these on the Munchkin CCG.game site and look at the rules as well as the art on all of these cards. Go look at it. They're all phenomenal. Every hero has a different artist that draws the art for it. John Kovalik does the grays, and then it has like Katie Cook and Len Peralta. This is Greg Hyland does the Bard cards, and he's phenomenal. He's done a bunch of other Munchkin stuff in the past. I've talked about the artist before. The art is just always great in these decks. The core art looks like Larda Souza, and the Fashion Furious Bard cards look like Lee Simpson. Oh, Mike Lucas did a couple of them too. So they change around, apparently, obviously, you know. Yeah, Larda Souza. So I think it's probably just on core that they stuck to one artist per hero. But you know, they can move it around. You can see the different art styles. This camera doesn't allow me to show you the art really up close with any detail. I mean, the hairspray, if you want to see it, yeah, that's pretty good. But I do like the art on these as well. I mean, the art on Magic cards, yes, it's beautiful, but this is more whimsical, and that's what I really go for. Let's look in the Fashion Furious Gray cards first. So, just to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3. Already, just by going through the Bard cards, I have 43 cards out. So there's already going to be some deep cuts. Because you want to fill in with some gray cards later on. You know, the gray ones are powerful as well, so you don't want to neglect them. I do have one deck that has no gray cards in it at all. My regular cleric deck, the non-where the hell are we deck. I call it the Religious Purity deck, because it's all cleric cards. But after Fashion Furious came out, I went through and I saw all of the great cleric cards that came with it, and all the great cleric cards that existed before that I didn't have any room to put in my first cleric deck. So I went ahead and just made a purely cleric deck with no grays in it. So that's what I called it. The Gatered Community. So we're looking at the Makeover Lord, which can unstick a card. He's really helpful. It's like Bodyguard Light basically, but it's not when he's squished, it's when he comes into play. The Green Room, heal 1 during Reckoning, but that, again, locations affect both players, so you would each heal 1 on the Reckoning, so that's a double-edged band-aid? It's not a double-edged sword, but anywho. Gated Community, during each hero's Reckoning step, that hero discards 1 card or takes 1 damage. That could be fun. I'm never too sure on locations, because you'd have to squish 1 to have another one out. So having more than 1 or 2 in a deck, you're just taking up room. Left sleeve, right sleeve. The Battle Dress. Smoking Jacket, Moody Ring, Zap Spill 3, deal 1 damage to target monster. That's a little too expensive. Here we go, the Velocipede, which in the first printing, I assume, just the first printing, the Velocipede is marked as V-Rare. So we were too excited. We were like, oh wow, we got so many of them in our first box. That's hilarious. And then for real, the Velocipede is actually common. And the toolbox, T-U-L-L-E, toolbox, is marked as common, but it is actually V-Rare. So, the first printing Velocipedes, even though they're common, might be worth something someday because they have the V on them that marks them as V-Rare. But the Velocipede is a 1-star loot, which is draw 1 card, then move 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. It is the Thief power. So it's nice to be able to cycle cards like that, so I'll put a Velocipede in there. Squashbuckler. What I'm really lacking on, what I'm seeing here, is monsters. So I'm gonna look for probably 4 more monsters at most. You don't want to have a huge amount of monsters, otherwise you'd just be drawing a whole bunch of them. I need, let's see, I have a 0, 2, a 3, and 2 4s. If I wanted maybe a higher than 4, maybe a Blarg, or Bullrog, or something, we'll look here in a minute, then something big. But like going through this, I'd have to see something really spectacular to be able to replace anything that I'm going for, loot or mischief-wise. Well, there's no gray mischiefs. These are the mischief choices right now, and anything else would just be cutting them to put them back in the cards here to make room for the other stuff. The fashionable, which I love the art, squish target armor. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I'm going to put him in the running. The Armadillo-mental, zap target armor in the Defender's Horde as a survivor ability. Is not as good, but he is a 4/4. Fashionable is a 3 gold for 2. So that's fun. The Vampire Brat, which is take a damage, deal 1 damage to target ally or monster. That's cool to have if you have a deck that will heal a lot, maybe a cleric deck, or my Terrific roll deck, which has 3 Lucky Giant's toes in it. You can see the deck breakdown of that. I have tweaked it slightly since then, so I may do an update. Or maybe just post the new changes that I've made to it in the comments. Whatevs. Dave the Devourer of Doodads. When this is hired, you may also squish a loot you control. If you do, this gains 2 damage. That's one of those that late game can make the difference. So if you put out Dave and you have your Hairspray, which has that bravado power, target hired monster gains 3 damage until the end of the fight. You do that with your blue suede shoes and your irresistible discos, and you can get a whole bunch of damage on that monster for that end game fight. The Vogue Elephant, which has a roll effect, so I've put some in the Terrific roll deck. That's Dean. Long-time viewers will know Dean because he jumps up on the table during every single game. That's Kit Kat again. The Shabby Sheep. Damage dealt to this by loot with 2 stars or higher is reduced to 0. I love that, because the Hydrax is 2 stars. The Commentator. Survivor, draw 1 card. 1 gold for 0 damage, but Survivor, draw 1 card. That's fun. I don't think it's necessary in this deck. And then the Sparkle Beast. When this is squished in a fight, choose 1 armor card in your discard pile and move that card to your stash. Do I actually have armor in here? Because that is a trinket. The Sonic Shield is armor, but that's the only one I have. So it's not worth it to have that Sparkle Beast in there. Sparkle Beast is rare, by the way, and it's also the Fashion Furious box cover art. It's nice to have. I think he's a fun art on there. That's Larda Souza did that one, so he's fun. And finish there. Let's look at some Blargrays. Blargrays? Again with the beefing up endgame thing, the mercenaries. When this is committed to a fight, oh wait, no, it wouldn't be endgame. This is during a fight. When this is committed to a fight, all weapons gain 2 power until the end of the fight. That's interesting. I had forgotten what that power actually was. Spirit Guide. It's only for yokai monsters, which I would need to make a yokai deck in order to put him in. Bob! My gray deck has 3 Bobs in it, which is fun because the ally of Bob is X gold for X life. X equals the total number of allies in play named Bob. And when this comes into play, deal 1 damage to target ally. So that means the first Bob is free because there's 0 Bobs in play. And so, but if you have 3 and the other person has 3, they can become 6 damage monsters, or 6 damage allies, or 6 life allies. God damn. 6 life allies late in the game, and just block an entire monster and still live. Locations: the ice-filled bathtub. Hero cards do not unzap during the unzap step. That can shoot yourself in the foot during like the other Bard deck that I have that has the trombones in it. However, during something that, like with the Maneater, if you zap the other person's hero card and they have a good zap ability, then you put this out after that. And oh yeah, by the way, don't unzap it. So, you know, F your enemies at that point. The expensive carry unit. Heroes must commit at least 2 gold when starting a fight. And when this is squished, give your opponent 1 gold. That can be interesting with the Inn of Improbable Rooms, because then you can have that and the School of Badassery out, which increases the gold cost of all monsters by 1. I wonder how that works. Because it says you must commit at least 2, so if it normally costs 1, now it costs 2. So if you commit 2, then you're still good. Huh. I'm just kind of talking to myself now. You should be in here. It's pretty great, YouTube. And let's see, the second aid kit, the Gambit of Gambling, the Scepter of Schadenfreude, which I had one over here. I hadn't filed back in. That's a nice card to have. It's a loot trinket. Zap when your opponent is bleeding. Zap and draw 1 card. But since I don't have any bleed effects in this deck, then it's completely useless to have. But it is a good card in that bleed deck. It is so useful. Beast Be Gone, loot trinket. When a beastie monster controlled by your opponent survives the fight, this deals 1 damage to that monster. I was thinking about making a deck built around having 3 of these, so that any 3 damage monster, when it gets stashed, immediately dies. Let's see, the Angry Katana. Take 1 damage during your Reckoning step because it's a 2-star, 2 damage, 2 defense weapon, but it does do with a smack ability, which is zap, deal 1 damage to target stash monster, I believe. That was close. Deal 1 damage to target hero or target stash monster. Yes. The core cards that have special abilities, explain that special ability in the description on the card. Beyond that, in Blarg and Fashion Furious, it just says the ability that it has. Because all of the abilities are also in the rules, obviously. So you can just look them up if you forget what they are. But anybody who's getting Blarg and Fashion Furious is obviously familiar with the game. You're not going to start with those. You're going to start with Core, because Core. And so you're going to get, you probably already know what the abilities are. So it just says what the abilities are. Sometimes I forget the wording of the abilities, or what those abilities can target. In this case, hero or stash monster. Let's see, the Shredder, which is another Zap Squish loot. Zap Squish this, target hired monster gains 2 damage for the fight. Again, good endgame. I should make an endgame deck where you just have all of this stuff set up for the endgame and you just throw it all. The High Roller, when you roll a 5 or 6 on any roll effect, it gains a +1 damage, which is great for the Terrific roll deck. I've parsed it down to 1 from the 2 that were in there because I wanted to find room for Grandma Larceny and the Vogue Elephants from Fashion Furious. So, more roll effects. The monsters, Boring Beetle, the Cutasaurus, which is a loot squish ability. When it's committed to a fight, or when you open it, when he's hired. The monster ability is squish target committed weapon with 3 stars or higher, which means it cannot kill the Hydrax. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the Cutasaurus. The Hardvark. When this is hired, it gains 3 damage for each committed weapon until the end of the fight, which would be fun for those weapon-heavy decks where somebody likes to commit multiple weapons during fights. The Beastie Boys. Vengeance Most Foul. If your hero card has more damage tokens than your opponent's hero card, this gains 2 damage. Always fun. That's fun in a wizard deck where you're probably going to take a little bit of damage, and you can do a bunch of mischiefs that have a Give Blood ability. So you might be able to even sneak that in and do it during combat. It's like, oh, but we have the same amount of damage on us, but I'm going to Blood Geyser and give blood so it's cheap. And then you have more damage on you and it does more damage in the fight. So, stuff like that. It's fun. The Honey Badger, when a weapon deals damage to this, reduce that damage to 0. Another FU Hydrax card. The Trash Panda, which I have this monster in my wizard deck in case they get an unstick ability. If they have a Make Overlord of their own, they take the Curse of Quack off of the Hot Potato and send it back. On the next turn, I put out the Trash Panda, which has a, you may squish 1 unzapped loot in your horde. If you do, this gains 2 damage for the fight. Like, oh, dead. But they can't do that because if I permazap it so you can't give it back to me, then it's permazap. You don't get to unzap. It's not an unzapped loot. So that is one of those contingencies. Potato contingencies. Love it. The Wounded Pride, 5 gold for 6 damage, but only 2 life. But it has pay 1 to regenerate. The Bullrog, we were talking about that. That's a big maybe on the hugeness. Oh man, the Wounded Pride would be nice. Yeah, actually, that goes with this. I might put in a Walking Dreads because they have regenerate as well. Because again, with the Shrieking Fans, they gain 1 damage for each face down card in my stash. So if we're looking at that as one of our endgame cards, then a couple of things with regenerate would be a good idea. Throw those out at the beginning of the turn, put some gold on them, maybe put too much gold on them, they run away, and you get the ability to have more face down cards in your stash. And if they don't know that the Shrieking Fans are coming out, if you haven't put them out before, then that's going to be a huge surprise. The Building Inspector. When this damages the defender, squish target location. But the wording on that says that it is not optional, so if you have the only location in play, this is an unplayable monster if you want to keep that location in play. The Goldfinch, get your gold. I like him, but I don't think he works in this deck. The Potato Bug. You may squish this survivor ability, and if you do, squish target trinket, the anti-Giant's Toe card. Boom, that's all for my Blarg Rays. And like I said, I think I need a Walking Dreads. I'm not even going to go through the well, maybe the allies a little bit. Maybe I need a red tunic. Barbarian the Librarian. When you squish a monster, you get to draw a card. That might be nice. Bertha, kind of a big ally, but cheap and doesn't have any special abilities. Bodyguard. Bodyguard's a nice utility card. Sword Caddy. I don't want to overdo it on allies in this deck, though. Red to it. Fizban Dentalminster. Fizban Dentalminster. Yeah, you say it. If you know the pronunciation of this, put it in the comments, like it would be in a dictionary. Just, I have no idea. I'm gonna go with Fizban Dentalminster. Fizz for short. Use when playing a mischief. Deal 1 damage to all allies and monsters. This is an interrupt. The only thing is, it says all allies. He's an ally. So would that kill him? And if so, that is a one-trick pony. I'm not sure I like that. He's a neat card. Hey, look. Walking Dreads. Might be all I need. Right in a cage. Hipstar. Boom. Okay, I'm now done. I like the Locket of Fleeting Fortune. It's a rare. If your opponent has 2 or more stashed monsters, increase the gold cost of their hired monsters by 1. It's kind of mean, but it means the name of the game. Alright, so we'll put that there. Okay, now that we've gone through and we've chosen all of the stuff that we want to put in here, I mean, I don't know if I want to put any rares or V rares or X rares in here. Hot Poker, X Monster. I would love to have an X Monster in there. I don't think I have room for it though. Plus, it doesn't fit with the extra stashed cards because it goes back to your hand after the combat. Orcs or alt art orcs. All of the commons that I have in here are the alt sepia art X rares. Like the Gazebo, Blandy McBlanderson, the Chainsaw Bloody Dismemberment, the Boots of Butt Kicking, but I also have my W rares, the School of Badassery, again the X Monster, my Hot Poker. See, I'd love to play this too, but I don't have any Ace of Spades. I like the School of Badassery, but there is not a place for it in this deck. And then my Bard super rares are more air guitars. Like I said, I put one in here. So the Tiny Unicycle, which is a Blarg card, but I have the Alt Art promo. Zap, look at the top card of your deck and either return it to the top of your deck or move it to the bottom. And then the other Zap ability is Zap, squish this, draw one card. So it would cost you an Irresistible Disco to be able to do that with the card you just looked at, but sometimes that can be useful. But there's other Tiny Unicycles in there, I think. But let's see, Blarg, the Inn of Improbable Rooms, which is the W rare, the Miser Stone. I don't really like the power on the Miser Stone. It's a 1-star loot, and used when target hero has 2 or more stashed monsters with a gold cost of 1 or less. This is already too many rules. Zap, deal 1 damage to that hero. So you have to look at the monsters to be able to do damage to the hero. I don't like that. The Sticky Shield, which is kind of nice, but I already have a loot squish ability on here with the Glass Gong, because this is used when your opponent commits a weapon. Zap, collect 1. Zap, squish target weapon that has a star or a star value of less than or equal to the number of tokens on this, then squish this. That's a lot of way of saying if your tokens are the same number as their weapon, Zap, squish both. Let's see, I'm also not going to commit Kova, because this particular copy of Kova is signed by Kova. It is a John Kovalik card. It's just a caricature of John, who draws all of the gray cards in core, and I sent this to him and he signed it for me, and so because he's a very stand-up guy. I asked very nicely, and I wasn't greedy about it or anything. So shout out to John again for my signed Kova. Now that I've chosen all of the cards that I want in my deck, now we start cutting like a team. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, that's 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50. I have 50 cards, and I need a 40 card deck. So I need to cut 10 cards out of this. How do we do that, you say? Well, you start looking at what your theme coalesced as you went along, which for this is being able to stash a bunch of stuff, have a lot of face down cards in your stash, and then get the Shrieking Fanza. Okay, so we're looking at all the things that we can put down face down, and we're going to keep most, if not all, of those. Roar has draw 1 card with Encore ability, keep those. Irresistible Disco has Encore ability, keep those. Shrug, Encore ability, keep those. One More Time moves it to your hand. I'll Be Bach, use when a treachery card is moved to your discard pile, stash that card. So it stashes cards for you. It gives the Encore ability to other cards, so that can get you some good stuff there. YOLO, I want to keep that in because I only got the 1. Trollolol, need 3 of those. We went through that. Starstruck, I only got 1. I'd like to keep that. Can't touch this. Only 1. Jam Session, I'm willing to take one of those out. Elvish Impersonator, man, I like those, but I'll take one out. 99 Bottles has Encore, so I want to keep those. But I will put one in the front in case we have to move on to deep cuts, just to get down to the 40. let's see. Glass gong, air guitar, brass kicker, chopsticks. You know what? Chopsticks out. That was in there for whimsy. Blue suede shoes. I don't think I need all 3 of them. I'll keep 2. Like that. Whammy bar, sonic shield, hairspray, velocipede. One hit wonder, freebird. Might need to cut the fashionable. Yeah, let's get rid of the fashionable. 3, 4, 5. That's 5. Which means this 99 bottles has to go. That's 6. I need 4 more. I can live without can't touch this. 3 more. I can live without Starstruck. 2 more. Make your guess on the next one. Need 2 more. Guess what they're gonna be. Guess what they're gonna be. Because I need the sonic shield. I don't have any other armor. I need all 3 of those weapons because 3 weapons is kind of the minimum for a deck I've found. I need Walking Dreads and the Wounded Pride. Hipstar is a really fun monster. Freebird. Freebird's out. Freebird is out. 1 more. I'd like to keep all 3 of these allies. One more. Man, okay. I think I am going to take out the sonic shield. Because with the paring down I had to do with the mischiefs, I need all of the ones that I have. So the sonic shield ability doesn't really come into play much. I think it'd be a drag. Because remember, the sonic shield is zap, discard a mischief card, prevent 3 damage to your hero as an interrupt. Man, it's tough to get rid of that though. But if the damage that you're avoiding is coming from, say, a nope, from a thief, then if you're trying to discard, if you have to discard a mischief for it, you might as well just play Troll or Shrug and avoid that happening. For things like nope, the Shrug is the better one to play, because even though it stashes it and they get their gold back, it's situational. It's more situational. So if they're doing it to save their butts during a combat, or so that damage doesn't happen so something else doesn't happen, then you have avoided it for now. They get the card gets stashed, and they take that damage from that particular fight, which might be the end of the game. And then, if it's not, they get it back at the beginning of their next turn. But then they can't use it because it's defend from 3 damage wherever it comes from, and then reflect it back on any target hero or stashed monster, or hero or hired monster. I think no, it's any target. Trying to remember cards. But you reflect it back on, I believe, any target. Definitely either hero or current hired monster. So they wouldn't be able to use that until they get damage done to them again. Whereas something like Squish Target Loot, you want to use Trollolol on that instead of Shrug, so that they just don't have it anymore and they've already paid for it. That gold is gone. That's a very effective anti-compost card. So I believe, if my count is correct, we are down to 40, and this is a very tight deck. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. Alright, for those who wanted to watch until the end of the video and not look in the description for the deck list, that is the Danger Zone, 1 copy. 1 copy each of Backup Dancers, the Make Overlord, and Bodyguard. Monsters are 1 copy of the One Hit Wonder, 2 copies of Shrieking Fans, 1 copy of Lucy in the Sky, 1 Hip Star, 1 Walking Dreads, 1 Wounded Pride. In Loot Non-Weapon, we have 2 Blue Suede Shoes, 1 Whammy Bar, 1 Hairspray, and 1 Velocipede. Just as a note, I only had 1 spare Hairspray. I might, if I should acquire another one, replace something with another one because of the Blue Suede Shoes unflip ability to go along with the Irresistible Disco combo there. Maybe. And to have 2 Hairsprays out, Blue Suede Shoes, flip flip. So, if you do should I acquire another Hairspray, I might do that. Just FYI, if you have more than one at home. Then the Velocipede, 1 copy of Brass Kicker, 1 Air Guitar, 1 Glass Gong, and then we move on to Mischiefs, 2 Elvish Impersonator, 2 Jam Session, 1 99 Bottles, 2 Irresistible Disco, 2 Shrug, 3 Roar, 3 Trollolol, 1 YOLO, 2 I'll Be Bach, and 3 One More Time. And that is 40 cards, made a deck. I'm going to put these in sleeves, and the next episode that you see after this might be me playing, probably against Tank, with this deck. Tell me what you think. Tell me, do you think I made the right cuts at the end? Do you think I made the right decisions for the theme of this deck? Do you have any suggestions? Do you have? I would even take suggestions of cards that I do not currently have. I mean, you don't know my entire inventory, obviously, unless you're in the house. Whatever. But give me just shout out suggestions if you think that this deck needs to be tweaked, if you think it's good, bad, or indifferent. Give me a holler. So yeah, that was my deck building video, which I am going to whimsically name, you've already seen it because it's in the description, probably over there, the Build-A-Bard Workshop. Sometimes it's all in the name. Sometimes you have the name and then you have to come up with a theme around it. So that's what I did here. Give me a shout. Again, find me here. Find me at the Steve Jackson's forums. Find me. I'm Malcavman on there. I am Malcavman on the Zapped and Squish group, or well, let's say it'd be me on there. TopCityGamers at Gmail. Give us a message if you want. And like I said, the deck list will be in the description. So let me know. And in the meanwhile, be sure to like, share, favorite, subscribe, pay it forward, send us money, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time.